might say there might be somewhat of a left leaning to this project. I'm asking all these various groups of people with a different perspective on how to live. I've got the religious, spiritual, the scientific, environmentalist, activist. I've got artists of all kinds, and I've also businessmen and politicians. Because I think that it's a good thing to have it out there, what people really think is going on. And, and I suppose the 1% is a big thing these days, right? The 99% and the 1%, and you're obviously the 1%. So it'd be nice to hear what the 1% has to say.
Sure, absolutely.
Right. So I hope you don't ever feel like I'm trying to
no.
funny here.
I'm absolutely happy. No problem.
Okay, cool. So first of all, I always ask everybody, what do you think is the most pressing issue facing our species ultimately, which affects the planet? I mean, it seems like there's a convergence of financial, environmental, political, social. It all seems to be coming to a point.
Well, that may be true, but I look at capitalism as a long-term objective because I think it's the absolute best way for a society to exist on Earth, because many other experiments have been tried, they've all failed. Capitalism survives because it works. But one of the derivatives, one of the symptoms, and one of the outputs of capitalism are bubbles. So you can have a tulip bubble a few hundred years ago. You can have an internet bubble. You can have a housing bubble. You can have a debt bubble. We're going through one right now. We're going to survive it. It causes a lot of trauma. The volatility associated with capitalism is one of the derivatives you have to deal with if you want the benefits of it. And I don't get too upset about this because we're going to have a lot of focus on it, but I know it's part of a cycle and that the sun will shine again, and sometimes the storm is worse just before it's over. And I think that's where we're at in the cycle right now. I think we're going to be stronger because we're going to realize we don't want to put too much debt into our model. It means our banks and people individually shouldn't have too much debt. So 10 years from now, we're going to be much better off. I'm always an optimist. And from all of this chaos are great investment opportunities.
Is that sort of the impetus behind your other project, Project Earth, with climate change?
Sure. I got tired of people telling me that we're all going to die next week. I don't believe it. I think what I wanted to learn about Project Earth and why I got involved, because we spent $60 million making that documentary, is that if you think about the challenges of climate change, if in fact it is man-made, and of course there's a lot of debate coming back into the equation, but if it is, I want 10 good solutions that I can profit from, that countries are willing to pay for to solve it. Let me give you a good example. Greenland is one of the largest sources of ice on Earth that's not in the water already. So think of the analogy, an ice cube in a glass melts and it doesn't change the level of the water because it's already in the water. But if Greenland melts, the oceans go up 23 feet and it destroys much of civilized land on oceans and so on seashores. So what I'm saying is I want to have a solution for that. If in fact Greenland really continues to melt, I want to know what it costs to stop that from happening, and now I know.
So what is business responsibility, capitalism's responsibility for managing the Earth? How much would you point towards where things are now as a result of people's actions?
Well, one of the things I learned when I was working on that project is I worked with Jason Box, who wrote the paper that got Al Gore the Nobel Peace Prize. And Jason doesn't believe that it's man that's affecting the cycle of climate change. He believes in the 100,000-year cold and heat cycle, and we're going actually into a period of cooling right now. We may have a decade when it's warmer, but he believes that we're going to have another ice age at some point. So I'm not that concerned, and I don't get hysteric about it, but I'll tell you what the responsibility of business is. It's to make money for its shareholders. It's to take money from people that are willing to take a risk and build businesses that create jobs for individuals and helps families grow and keeps people employed. And every business has a social responsibility not to affect the planet or change it in any way. When they arrived, it was in one state, they should leave it in the same. And businesses get it. They're not dumb. They understand exactly what they need to do. They want to use less energy, burn less hydrocarbons, and be more efficient. And the reason they do it is they'll make more money. Profit motivation is what drives good environmental discipline. It's always about the money all of the time. Anybody that thinks otherwise is wrong.
What about in regards to oil companies? The oil companies just want to keep pumping out the oil because that's how they make their money, even at the expense of the environment. Is there ever unfettered capitalism? Is there ever unfettered corporate profit?
I hope so. I hope there's lots of unfettered corporate profit. I hope there's a lot of greed, because actually this is good. People don't understand the motivation of a business. Its DNA is to make money. It's not to save society. It's individuals that give back. So here's my point. I want an oil company to make a ton of profit so its shareholders get enriched. Those individuals should be giving 5 to 10% of what they make back into charities. Everybody should do that, and I think people are good. If given a chance to provide for their family, anything in excess they're willing to give back to society. It's not the role of a business to do that. A business is to provide a job for somebody so they can make enough money to give back. I don't want to charge any corporate tax. I want corporate taxes in Canada to be zero. I want to tax people for the things they use. So if you use a road, if you use a highway, if you cross a bridge, you pay. And you take a portion of what you make after tax and you give it back to society. I'm totally okay with that. But I don't expect a business whose DNA is to profit to ever have a real soul or conscience. That's not what they're made for. They're made to provide jobs for us, and we should understand that about them.
So then would you say that they need to be managed by government or some kind of regulatory system?
No. What we want to do with government is make it smaller. In my world, the way I think, every dollar that government spends, 1/3 is completely wasted because it's not actually tested by the market. It's some guy at some desk deciding he's going to spend it in some way that no one else agrees on. Just because the government spends money doesn't mean it's going to be efficiently spent. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to have the government shrink by 1/3. I want to reduce taxes by 1/3. I want to leave more money in the pockets of Canadians who inherently know what to do with it. I want those Canadians to create new businesses in the private sector that employ other Canadians so they can be meaningfully employed, provide for their families, give back to society. I don't want the government involved in any of that. Our job today, yours today, and mine today, is to get up in the morning and say, what can I do to make government smaller? What can I do to shrink taxation? What can I do to take the burden off people to pay so much tax? This is the key. We want to shrink government, make it smaller. Every day, that's the mantra.
So what would keep everybody in line? What would keep the forest replanted? What would keep the offshore drilling or managing that it's done in environmentally, with very little environmental impact?
Let me explain why this works. The pursuit of profit keeps everybody happy. If people can make money, provide for their families, and provide back to society, that's what makes Canada great. The last thing you want is a person to not have a job and be dependent on government. That's horrible. That's a terrible outcome. So what we need to do now is to figure out a way, how can we grow our economy, because it's anemic right now, it's growing at 2.1% according to our government today. And the reason I think that's happening is we rely too much on government. Let Canadians who are very entrepreneurial in nature have more of their money in their pockets and let them build businesses. They'll figure out that they can profit from planting trees. They'll figure out that they can profit from keeping the environment clean. This is good. They'll create businesses and they'll make their own way. Less government, that's the theme. My goodness, this is a chance to do something great for this country. Make the government smaller.
So what's the difference between your business philosophy and your personal philosophy? Are they the same?
They're exactly the same. I am a little right-wing of Attila the Hun, and as far as I'm concerned, we need a lot more Kevin O'Learys in this country. Lots and lots of them. I hope to clone myself 10,000 times all over this place, because it's now time to be proud of Canada, not apologize for success, and get out there and compete. This country has everything you need to be a global winner, and we should celebrate that.
For cold hard truth, in your personal life, I'm sure that you wouldn't treat your children as with cold hard truth. There can be warm, soft truth.
Don't be so sure about that. Let me tell you a
story.
Can
there be warm, soft truth?
You know, my dad lives in Switzerland. He's a Swiss citizen, and he lives in Geneva, and he's 81, so I go to visit him all the time. And I take my children with me when they can come, and I'll just go over for the weekend to have dinner with him, to see him. And so there's a flight that I take my son on. Just a couple of weeks ago, he was going on board, and he said to me, because he's done it many, many times, he said, "Dad, why is it that when we get on this plane, I have to turn left and go sit in the back of the bus, and you get to sit in the front with the movies and the good food?" And I said to him, "Trevor, you don't have any money." That's the key. For him to understand that he's got to go make it on his own. I'm doing a great job parenting him in what really matters. He wants to be successful. He wants to sit at the front of the plane. Go make some money. Go be productive. Go get out there and make it happen. I want that message to be for every child. That's what matters.
For yourself personally, do you ever feel like you want to make a difference in the world? What difference do you want to make personally?
So what I'd like to do is try and spawn as many businesses as I possibly can, help as many entrepreneurs as I possibly can. I have a very simple philosophy. When I wake up in the morning, I want to go to bed richer than I woke up. That's it. And the way I do that is I invest in businesses. I want young entrepreneurs to come to me. I want to give them capital. I want them to create jobs. I want them to build their businesses and become filthy rich. I want them to aspire to the 1%. This is why we should celebrate the 1%. They should be the shining light that everybody looks up to and wants to become. You should want to get up and be free. It's not about the pursuit of money, it's the pursuit of freedom. That's what I'm talking about. If you can become wealthy in your lifetime, you'll be free to do whatever you want. That's a very, very noble pursuit, and you'll help many Canadians on the way. So I hold out that 1% and say, look what you can become if you work hard, get focused, and decide that you're going to be an entrepreneur, which is a great thing for this country.
So what do you think of the whole Occupy movement?
It's very interesting. There's nothing wrong with protesting. I'm a big believer in freedom of speech, but this particular movement has some problems. It doesn't have any leadership. It doesn't have a consistent message. It should get organized if it wants to be effective. And the best way to do that is to become a political force where you can actually vote your way into power. If their ideas have merit and they have better solutions, then they'll get that power. But right now I don't hear any, for protesting for the sake of protesting doesn't advance the argument. If the ideas are something new to solve problems, they're not going to get anywhere. And that's where I think they're at right now. And by the way, it's terrible on your resume to sit in a tent in the back of a street.
But you have to admit there's something interesting about the organic way it's sort of organized. You're right, there isn't a leader and there isn't really an agenda, but there's a general consensus that things have to change. Do you feel that? Do you sense that?
No, I don't agree with them. I mean, what I want and what I like to see happen, I'm a big believer in freedom of speech, is bring forward your ideas, bring forward your arguments, bring forward your direction and your new path for better success. Show me what you've got. Sitting in a tent on a street corner isn't doing that for me. It's not adding anything. If anything, it's being disruptive to the rest of people here in Vancouver that need to go to work. I mean, look, I have no problem with it, and I think they have the right to do it, but how's it advancing the argument in any way? What I would say to them is, listen, get organized. If you want to be a movement, have a message, have a leader, have an agenda, and be focused on your message. Half these people don't even know which companies they're protesting against. That's no good.
So it almost sounds like you don't really have a philosophy that precludes all these other philosophies. It's just that you're bent towards business.
No, I'm bent towards capitalism and the pursuit of wealth. This is the most noble mindset and profession and direction and career any Canadian can have. Great wealth creation is what this country needs today and 100 years from now. What we want to do with our society is provide for it. The wealthy pay all the taxes. They provide the social net we need, and they want to do that. But never ever put in any way a block for a Canadian to create wealth. I don't want to see the government get bigger. I don't want to see the government redistribute wealth. I don't want to see the government doing anything except providing roads, a police force, a small army, and regulations. That's it. That's all I want them for. I don't want them for anything else.
So would you say that everything is going along the way it ought to be?
No. In this country we pay too much tax. What we need to do is reduce taxation. What I want to see happen is corporate taxes go to zero, and I want to see user taxes go up. I want to see Canadians pay much less than 43%. That's insane. I want to see the average Canadian paying 25%. But every time you use a good or service that you elect to use, you pay for it. So that if you don't want to use that service, you don't have to. I want to see Canadians keep more money in their jeans.
So this project is actually has a global agenda.
Yeah.
So globally, would you say is that the way things operate at? Is that the way capitalism operates?
For the first time ever, let me explain something about the global environment that I find very interesting. For your entire lifetime, for the last 200 years, the bastion of wealth creation was North America. There were more billion-dollar market cap companies in North America than anywhere else in the world. So that all of the wealth is being created here. Last year, for the first time in history, we now find more billion-dollar market cap companies outside of North America than in it. In Brazil, in India, in China, in Thailand, in Cambodia. This is where the growth is. We no longer have a harmonious growth rate in the world. We're now falling behind, and those countries are speeding up. So the globe is not a static place. It's shifting and changing, and the tides of wealth are moving from North America to the Asian, Brazilian, and Indian markets. This is profound. These people have for a long time have suffered in poverty. No longer. It's their time in the sun. And you know how they're doing it? with capitalism. Even the Chinese are capitalists. We should celebrate capitalism. We should teach it to children in schools, and we should hold it up as a light that they aspire to. This is what saves the world, the pursuit of profit. It's the most important thing anybody can pursue.
So would you say that then that China is going about it not making the same mistakes maybe that Europe did and North America did in industrializing? Would you say they're doing correct? And Brazil as well?
Absolutely. The Brazilian banks do not lend to other sovereign countries. They've decided to focus on their own country, so they don't have any sovereign debt in Italy or Greece. They were very smart about it. The Chinese government is focused on making China work. You know, nationalism is a good thing if it's the pursuit of profit. They've learned the mistakes of Europe where there was too much debt. Look at Greece, it's completely broken. 42% of the people work for the government and the other half don't pay any taxes. Of course that's not going to work. This generation of Greek people are lost. The next generation will figure it out. They're going to want to be capitalists, entrepreneurs, pay their taxes, provide maybe 23% of the population jobs in government, and the rest of the private sector is going to save them. Look, the weather's good there. They'll work it out.
So what about the whole thing in the States? I mean, aren't they the beacon of capitalism? Aren't they the representation of exactly what you're saying in regards to very little government regulation? And it doesn't seem like it's the greed factor that you're saying, it's imploding.
Well, no, I think what happened to the United States is the cost of policing the world can't be borne by one company. Sorry, I'll start again. The cost of policing the world cannot be borne by one country. The billions and billions and billions of dollars spent on wars in Iraq and Iran and Cambodia and Thailand in the past, Vietnam, they can't do that anymore, and everybody knows that, and they know that. That's got to stop. And in some ways, the world's going to have to fend for itself. What I loved about the U.S. model for a long time, for 200 years, is it allowed countries to really embrace democracy and capitalism. And I think you're going to see the benefits of that for a long, long, long time. But because we have an internet today and everybody can see how everybody else lives, we're seeing the activists in the Middle East throw away the chains of, you know, despot leaders. They don't want to see that kind of corruption anymore. Egypt's a good example, and obviously what happened in Libya. These are all wonderful things. Volatile for now, but 20 years from now, those young Libyans are going to be in a capitalist society, creating their own businesses, pursuing profits in the way they should, and making that country a much better place to live, because it has lots of natural resources, particularly oil. This is great.
There's another movement that started organically in a lot of these countries. There were no necessarily leadership that brought the people out to protest the government. It was kind of a spontaneous thing. Do you see any similarities between what's going on with the Wall Street movement?
Well, you're talking about oil and the oil sands in Alberta, for example?
I'm talking about whatever these people are feeling that they need to express in regards to making a shift in the world that they live in.
Oh, I understand. There's nothing wrong with change. I like to see the stimulus of change. I like the open debate. I love people having the ability to protest. You know, in many countries you can't do that. I celebrate that freedom in Canada, but let's take something like the Canadian oil sands, a fantastic natural resource. We're the envy of the world to have that, an unlimited supply of energy. We should celebrate that. What I want to do, and one of my, you know, pet projects is I'd like to teach children to understand why that resource is so important, so that they know to protect it. When people come up here and say that we're creating dirty oil, that's ridiculous. We have some of the most advanced technologies in terms of extracting this wonderful resource, and everybody around the globe wants it from us, so we should celebrate it and not attack it for what it is. It creates thousands of jobs for Canadians, pays billions of dollars of taxes, allows our country to be great, and we should really protect it and call it what it is, a fantastic asset that every Canadian owns. Not let people attack it as if it's a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing.
If in the tar sands case, if regulations force them to spend a certain percentage on doing it cleanly, at least less of environmental impact, and that goes against the bottom line of shareholders for that company.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, I'm not against regulations in terms of extracting oil, but I want them to be competitive. In other words, we need every country to agree. We need the Chinese to agree, the Americans to agree, the Europeans to agree. I don't want to over-penalize our private sector with some regulations that we dreamt up on our own. Everybody has to work with the same rules. It has to be a level playing field, and until that's established, I don't want to burden our companies with extra costs that they don't deserve to have to pay. That's uncompetitive and makes us less competitive and holds back Canada. Very, very bad idea. And I'm not convinced of this climate change metric. I think there's a lot of holes in the science I'm not comfortable with, and I want to do far more study before I decide that I'm going to burden everybody with regulations that I have no idea really work for the next 100 years.
Even though climate change is just one aspect of the amount of pollution on this planet and its effects, would you say?
I mean, there isn't one aspect of the biosphere that isn't being impacted by pollution. Everything from industrial wastes to fish farming.
Well, I think salmon farming, it's not a good idea to jam a whole bunch of fish into a very small space. Viruses and bacteria become a major factor. That's probably not a great business model. I mean, if you're going to do it, you've got to give them more space, or you've got to go back to the old way of catching them in the open. You know, if it doesn't work, it's not going to be a business. So if all the fish die, no one's going to profit from that. So clearly there's an issue there, and I've seen this when I've gone out and looked at these investments myself. No, it's not a good idea to jam 10,000 fish into a few hundred cubic yards. It's not so smart.
So in no way do you think that there's something that's a bit out of control?
No, no. I think the markets are very efficient at weeding out bad ideas. So when you say let's control the creation of profits or let's control capitalism, that's not a good idea because you already have a built-in governor. It's called the markets. Bad ideas die, they go bankrupt because they're bad ideas, and good ideas flourish and become great creators of wealth. You never want to get in the way of that process. You never want the government to be involved in it. I don't want the government deciding for me which sector should work, which company should get support, which should get special tax treatment. That's all bad. I want the market to decide that, and I want us globally to let the markets be the markets. The whole globe is moving to more of a capitalist way of thinking, a more democratic way of thinking. Let it happen. This is fantastic. We're trading with each other. The Chinese are going out of poverty that they've had for almost 1,000 years into a fantastic growth economy. 34 million Brazilians have come out of poverty in the middle class. What made this work? Why did this happen? The pursuit of profit and the wonderful derivatives of capitalism. Let's celebrate that. Let's support it, and let's make sure nothing ever touches it. This is the jewel of Earth.
So I guess it comes out that...
We have time.
Oh, we have
time?
Okay.
We've got another interview.
You know, is it possible, I know that you're a musician as well,
Yeah.
Is it possible, we've been asking people to sing a line from the song, and what we're doing is we're going to put a composite video, separated.
What line do you have?
Fabi's a professional singer.
It's very easy. Let me just get a pitch.
She is the singer. She's actually an opera singer.
Buried in the deep is
deep.
made a diamond as formed in tension, created in a stone.
Yeah, so it's part of the overall song.
And so am I, made from my own. Buried in the deep is made a diamond as formed in tension, created in a stone, and so am I, made from my own. What's the tune? Do I know it?
'Cause buried in the deep is made a diamond, as formed in tension, created in a stone.
So we would only ask maybe to sing two lines.
Maybe you just have to
Yeah,
sing
yeah.
it
And we'll pick one line.
Buried in the deep is made a diamond, diamond, as formed in tension, created in a stone. It goes up the same way?
Yeah, so you're going from D to D sharp.
Okay, give me a couple of takes here. Buried in the deep is made a diamond, okay, as formed in tension, created in a stone. Okay, I'll try and not be flat. Not a great singer, okay.
Right, do it one more time.
Right into the camera?
Yeah, if you don't mind, you know, can you see this? Is this
Yeah,
mark?
okay.
I'll hold it up.
All right.
Right here, so that.
That's good.
You want me to sing one more
Hold it
time?
here. Sorry, hold it here.
There.
Down a little bit, yeah, that's good.
Okay.
That's perfect. Buried in the deep is made a diamond, as formed in tension, created in a stone. Another take?
Slower,
I'll sing it
between
one more time.
lines.
Buried in the deep is made a diamond,
Buried in the deep is made a diamond,
as formed in tension, created in a stone.
as formed in tension, created in a stone. Try one more time. Buried in the deep is made a diamond, a formed in tension, created in a stone. It's probably as good as it's going to get.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's
Thank
pretty
you.
crazy,
Thank
all
you.
right?
Thank you.
You're up for anything.